Hi there, and welcome to our interview series here at Be a Better Guide. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of speaking with Colin Garrity from Tours by Locals, which is a company that connects travelers with local tour guides from around the world. We dive in over the course of the dialogue to how to market and sell your tours. So, if you are a small business selling tours, or especially an independent guide trying to sell your experiences online, you'll definitely want to tune in. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to beabetterguide.com. On today's show, we have Colin Garrity from Tours by Locals. Tours by Locals is a company that connects travelers with local tour guides who are keen to share their knowledge, experience, expertise, what we do as guides. So they're really serving two customer groups. They're working with the travelers who are looking for these local guides, and also the local guides to help them sell more tours. So we're going to dive in with Colin today and hopefully get into the meaty section too of like how can we as tour guides sell more and let people know that we exist and connect with them. So I'd like to welcome to the show Colin Garrity.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me.
Fantastic, thanks for being here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Tours by Locals and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we connect travelers with local tour guides around the world. We have a dedicated marketing and customer support team, and each of those work to drive our customers to the toursbylocals.com website and then connect them with the right guide for their trip. So our guide support managers here in the office, they work directly with our guides as well to help them grow their sales. We work with almost 1,600 tour guides in 132 countries around the world, and those numbers are always growing.
That's awesome, 132 countries.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's like it seems like every couple of weeks we're adding a new country. I imagine we'll run out here pretty quick.
What's the smallest or weirdest country you've run to?
I think Luxembourg would have to be probably the smallest one, and the most interesting. There's so many out there. Some of the most interesting tours, I think, places that I think are really compelling, that really generate interest from our travelers too. Madagascar is a big one. And then South America, Patagonia, throughout even Rapa Nui. So that's not exactly South America, but it's connected by Chile and politically anyway. And that's Easter Island for those who know the
that's awesome.
More conventional wording for the name.
That's great. We'll have to find that tour guides that are working out on Easter Island and connect them and be a better guide. That's
absolutely
fantastic.
Contact Marcus.
That's great. So when did your company get started? How long have you guys been around?
We've been in business since 2008. I believe our first sale was in 2009. And then I began as a guide support manager with Tours by Locals in 2011. And then since that time, kind of transitioned into recruitment. So I work with all of our newest guides, bringing them onto the team.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask a little bit about your role in the company. Now it sounds like it's changed a little bit. So what's your day-to-day work look like?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. I basically work with all of our applicants that contact Tours by Locals to become members of our team. And then when we're not seeing applications from areas where we'd like to have guides, I do have to do the actual kind of outreach or recruitment where I'm contacting guides kind of random intervals around the world. So you might, if you're a guide in a far-flung location that isn't represented on Tours by Locals, you might get an email from me sometime in the future.
Okay, that's great. And of course, tour guides could reach out to you guys as well and try and get connected.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing would be to know actually that you can apply right on the website, just on the Become a Guide link. So you can find that really easily on the homepage. And then you can also get directly in touch with me by just typing into your email client tourguides@toursbylocals.com. That would reach me.
Okay. Oh, that's great to have your email contact. So, so walk me through this. So say I'm convinced, I want to make the leap, maybe leave a company or think that I can make some extra income as an independent tour guide. If I want to reach out to Tours by Locals, what does that look like? Say I've contacted you, you say, hey, look, Kelsey, I really like the cut of your jib, sign me up. What's the next step? How do we get rolling?
So the application would definitely be the first step in terms of making contact. But I think before registering an application, there's some good background work to kind of investigate. Think about transportation. So if your tours would require something other than walking as a transport mode, you'd need to think about local registration, licensing, and insurance requirements for a vehicle. You might need to look at hiring private drivers or renting commercial vehicles. I find that more than any other consideration, transportation is the one that's considered the least by potential guides when it's one of the more critical aspects to be looking at. So commercial transport is a big one, and then just really carefully developing your product. So you might have a great personality. You might have, you might be really great at getting to know people, meeting people, and developing a connection with them. But I think that most people could boast some of those skills. So knowing that you can deliver a great tour experience through some experience, actually having delivered that tour, and maybe taking a look at local competition to know where exactly you sit in that market, and then having an awareness of what kind of sets you apart from that competition. And if there are particular activities that you're engaging in that require some kinds of certification, so if you're looking at more kind of high-risk activities like rafting or climbing or skiing, hiking, things like this, look into the certification streams that the professionals in those fields would be undertaking.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that would vary a lot depending on what country you're working in.
Yeah, absolutely. With 132 countries, it's tricky to keep track of them all.
Yeah, I bet. So do you require a particular sort of national or city level certification for the guides that you work with? Or are you open to anybody?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because we don't have formal requirements in that regard, but many countries do have those requirements, and then we would be subject to those same requirements. So, for instance, if you were to want to be a tour guide in Rome, Italy, somebody that's just kind of walking on the street that hasn't been trained to be a tour guide, it's actually illegal to perform that activity as a local guide in the city. So we wouldn't want to work with a guide who would be placing themselves at risk locally, legal risk. So that guide would need to undertake the local training program that certifies national tour guides in Rome and in Italy. In Italy is an interesting case because there are so many provinces and regions that certify specifically for those geographic areas. And then many other countries will have those same certification requirements. Some won't. So if you look at the United States, for instance, cities like New Orleans, Washington, D.C., New York City, and I believe Philadelphia all require guide licensing. And so those are cities where we would require the guide to be a licensed guide before working with Tours by Locals. But many other cities, most other cities in the country don't require that kind of certification. We would still want the guide to be undertaking some kind of experience building or training to demonstrate some kind of competence in the role of a tour guide, so that we could move forward with their application with confidence.
Sure. So is it sort of an interview process? Are you trying to weed out, essentially the top guides, the best experiences? If you're serving the customers too, you've obviously got to keep that in mind, that if I'm not a very good tour guide, what's that sort of look like? You're providing feedback to me, or how does feedback work with customers too?
So we definitely want the best of the best on Tours by Locals, and we receive about a dozen to a couple dozen applications per day. And so we'll move forward with anywhere between maybe 5 to 10% of those applications. And by move forward, I mean establish contact with the applicant. And at that point, we'd be interested in finding out a little bit more about what they'd like to offer and getting a bit of more background information from them. So we always request references for each of our guides, and those need to be professional references, so somebody who can comment on their abilities or their potential from a professional perspective. So a previous employer, an agency they may have worked for, previous clients, if they have some tour guiding experience. We'd be very curious to know some of that background information. And then we would undertake to interview that guide as well. So we'd set up a time to chat over Skype so we can be kind of face-to-face, and then go through kind of step-by-step what they'd like to offer and develop a bit of a rapport with that person, so that we know who we're working with and we're partnering with somebody that we can trust and move forward with confidence. And then we would then activate their account and help them with providing they're successful with the interview. We would activate the account and help them publish their content to the website.
Sure. So at what point? Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
I was just thinking along the lines. So at what point? How are you guys making your money? So is this, once I get in, am I then paying you a fee to have you list my services, or how does that work?
Another key question. So our guides definitely all set their own prices for their tours. So every guide decides what they're going to be earning for their services. We earn a commission on the sale price of the tour. So we ask the guide to incorporate that commission into their price so that they're not suffering as a result of our commission, but rather the tour price is elevated to account for that, the payment processing, the marketing, and support features that we're providing the guide.
Okay. And so in terms of trips, say people are paying in cash or that sort of thing, is that something you guys would stay away from?
We definitely don't endorse payment by cash through Tours by Locals. We want to be have a degree of control over that purchase process, so that when the traveler books, they're paying us in advance, and then we aren't paying the guide until the tour is completed successfully. So in a sense, we're able to advocate on either side of that equation. If there was ever a dispute over payment, we could, if there was a complaint over the tour, we could withhold payment from the guide until we deemed it appropriate to issue payment to the guide. Or if, for instance, the traveler didn't show up to the tour or canceled on very short notice, we would still be able to pay the guide for their missed opportunity.
That's nice. Yeah, you've got some protections in there for the guides as well, which is nice.
Yeah, fairness is one of the guiding principles of the company, and so we're really careful in those kind of cancellation situations or disputes to be really considerate of both sides of the purchase and kind of advocate for both parties.
Does that come up a fair amount? I mean, when you're traveling, a lot of variables go on. Are there a fair amount of no-shows?
Actually, it's pretty rare. Us in the office, I think we have a bit of a skewed perception of how often it happens, because we see anywhere from 100 bookings in a day and I think today is actually a record for over 600 tours being delivered in a day. So we see a very small percentage of these become disputes or no-shows or cancellations here in the office, but that's typically what we deal with. So I think there's a perception here that...
Did you say you're delivering 600 tours today?
That's right. Yeah, it's actually a record today. I think it's 600.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. So everyone watching this, you know that there's these 600 tour guides out there who are getting a bit of work. That's good. This is an auspicious day for Tours by Locals.
Indeed.
So, I mean, I want to pick your brain a little bit on this too. So you've got lots of options as an independent guide when you're taking that step. And there's more and more companies like Tours by Locals that are getting out there. It's becoming a bit more of a competitive field. So do you require some sort of exclusivity when we sign up with Tours by Locals, that I can only sell my tours through your services? Can I do it on my own website? Can I do it with another company?
We don't demand exclusivity at all from our guides. What we do is actually try to earn exclusivity. So we try to give our guides as much work as we possibly can. So we drive as much traffic to the website and help them grow their sales through the website, so that they in turn can devote more of their availability to Tours by Locals. And then we kind of, the guide would then give exclusivity to us out of an interest in working more with us. So we don't demand it, we rather try to earn it.
Okay. And what, say, looking at that competitive field, I'm sure you guys know it even better than I, but why would you say me as an independent guide should pick your services over one of your competitors? Is there some especially compelling reason to work with Tours by Locals?
Yeah, I think that we're a little bit more involved in the success of each of our guides. So we have actually an area development team and a guide support team that works one-on-one with our guides around the world to address their previous sales, areas of improvement, and ways that we can grow together and increase their sales in general on Tours by Locals. And we're also very careful to make sure that the number of guides listed on our website very closely reflects the number of bookings that we would expect to see in an area. So on some other, I guess, competitor platforms, you'll see a bit of oversaturation going on in certain areas where there are more guide applications being submitted to those competitors. We're a little bit more careful to make sure that we're not reaching a saturation point in any area, so that each of the guides on the website still has an excellent chance of earning great business through Tours by Locals.
Okay. And I guess I hadn't thought too much about that, but so my fellow tour guide here is also signed up with Tours by Locals. We're in the same area, arguably maybe even competing for the same sort of tour area. How do you handle that?
We like to set up guides in the site in the sense that they're complementary to one another and not necessarily in competition. So most guides should have the ability to deliver like a highlights tour of some kind, but most of our guides will still specialize in certain areas, whether it's culinary tours, cultural, historical. There's quite a variety. Some guides focus more on activity-based tours. So there's a really broad range, and we try to make sure that each area, and then languages is another area where we can definitely use a bit of diversity. And so we try to have as diverse a roster of guides in each area as possible, so that everybody has kind of equal opportunities to do what they do best, maybe their specialty areas, but we're still covering the highlights, so that if every guide is maybe booked up on a certain day, we've still got at least one or two that can deliver a basic level of introduction or orientation to a city or a region.
Okay. Let's dive into it. So I love, you must get to work with a lot of incredible guides around the world. I mean, it's your job to seek them out and find out where they are, what they're doing. What are some of your top tour guides doing to sell more tours? Because this is really the top question when you're thinking about, as a tour guide, I'm all for that move to becoming independent, to becoming more entrepreneurial, so that you yourself can set prices, you yourself can specialize. You're not beholden to other people. It gives so much more flexibility in terms of working when you want to work, but with that comes all kinds of responsibilities, like promoting yourself, like marketing yourself. You've got to start going up against some of the bigger companies that maybe have big budgets, can advertise on Facebook, they can put thousands of dollars into search engine optimization, these sorts of things. So what are some of the top guides, the top sellers on your site doing, or what are the most successful independent guides that you've seen selling?
These are great questions, and this is exactly what I would try to relate to some of our newest guides as they're getting started on the website. So I would say the first things first is developing great content for the website, really engaging content, so that travelers develop an interest in wanting to actually reach out to you.
Okay, so let's pause there for a sec. What does that great content look like?
So the profile and tour descriptions that guides are publishing to the website, that is effectively their voice to the world. So they want to, with that content, highlight the destination, definitely highlight the high quality of the tour experience that they provide, and as well demonstrate their professionalism with the thoughtful composition of those sections of their written content on the website. So that does a great deal to kind of introduce the customer to the guide and encourage the customer to initiate contact with that guide. And then once contact is initiated by the customer, I think the most critical thing is for the guide to then respond promptly. So customers who take that time to make contact, they've already taken a massive step. They've submitted their email contact information to a website, which nobody really likes to do, even when they want to get a response. Nobody likes kind of setting that information out there. And they've done this in the hope that you, the guide, are the right person to take care of them on their journey. So they've got local accommodations, flights, local transport, tours in other cities to plan. So the better a job we can do in responding promptly and honoring the effort that they've put into and the risk they've taken in making contact, the more likely we are to earn the booking from them.
Yeah, I really like that too. Whether it's through Tours by Locals or not, but that initial response time, I think, is something we've got to be realistic about. I mean,
that demonstrates professionalism as much as the written content will. Absolutely,
yeah. And if they might be, certainly if it was me, I might blast one or two or maybe even three guides in a particular area, and hey, I like all three of these tours, but I wanted to, see what they're like.
Race on.
Yeah, it could be a race on, and maybe I'm not that picky. Maybe, like you said, I'm very busy, and the first person that gets back and seems to have a good energy. So do you sort of encourage tour guides? I mean, it's the age of smartphones, but basically, are you kind of on call as much as possible?
Yeah, I would say during a tour that it's definitely a good idea not to be answering your phone. So you're going to diminish the experience of your current clients, and that will not reflect very well in the feedback, which will then be viewed by potential clients in the future. So that's a really touchy issue. I would say avoid the phone if at all possible during a tour. But any Tours by Locals guide who's receiving an inquiry from us, they'll immediately receive an email notifying them of that inquiry or that booking request. And if they don't have a smartphone and aren't aware of the email coming in, we can make it so that they receive an SMS text message instead. So they're always made aware that there's an inquiry pending and that they should, when at their earliest convenience, get to the internet, get to a place where they can compose a response to the customer.
Sure. And so Tours by Locals doesn't respond to those initial requests. You're just sort of,
Oh no, we very often do.
oh, you
It
do.
all depends on where the traveler would be inquiring. They always have the choice of either inquiring directly with the guide or inquiring with us in support. And if they're inquiring with the support team, we'll work one-on-one with that traveler to kind of determine what their needs are, who would best fit their needs in terms of a guide, and then recommend who they actually contact.
Okay, interesting. And there's no extra fee for that.
No,
If you,
absolutely not. It's not really based on, like, it's not so much that we give a referral for a guide. We'll more so try to find out what the traveler is interested in, see if there's somebody that covers that interest, or if it's a basic level of interest, looking at the highlights, then we can just simply recommend the entire team of guides in that area.
hmm That's great. What are some of the other, I imagine when we're building our websites and that's a great question actually for Tours by Locals is that I will have my own profile page or tour page. And if I have multiple tours, do I then have multiple pages on your site?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely urge and encourage any guide on Tours by Locals to use their content really wisely on the website. So you can have, there's no limit to the number of tours that you can list on a profile, but we don't advise publishing anything more than about, say, 10 tours because it simply becomes overwhelming to the traveler. But I think it's really important to have at least a basic level of variety so that, if you're only offering a single tour, there's not a lot there to actually engage the traveler in terms of reading through content and clicking through multiple tour options. So I would say publish a range of tours that highlight the destination, that highlight that particular guide's set of skills, and just in general give the traveler an idea of what's possible in the destination so that should they find maybe not that particular tour that they're interested in, but maybe something customized, they can connect directly with the guide to inquire about customizing the experience.
That's a great question. So do you recommend that? Obviously, that's going to be an extra challenge to say I'm an independent guide. I've got my website. I'm looking to get lots of traffic. Opening up that customizable bag of worms, I guess is the expression, can be a little bit challenging. For me as a tour guide, if I've got a reasonable amount of traffic, I might want to make the decision. I just really want to do this set tour. Maybe I'm in Dubrovnik, I've got this killer Game of Thrones tour, like it's hot right now. I don't want to be dealing with these high maintenance people, come in and say, no, we've got to eat here. And then we read about this restaurant that's like an hour away and we got to go there. And so is that an option for me as a tour guide, just to say, look, I'm not interested in customization? And how does that reflect in the performance that you've seen? Do you really recommend opening that customization angle, or are there some successful tours that are just what you see is what you get?
Yeah, so a few things to comment on there. First of all, definitely we encourage all of our guides to be able to customize tours at least in advance of a booking. So it's actually a requirement for any Tours by Locals guide. If they want to apply, they need to be ready to customize an experience for a traveler based on perhaps what they're offering on the website. So making little tweaks to kind of tailor it to the traveler's interests, their kind of activity level, the motivations for their trip, those kinds of things. And in large part, this is going to only help the traveler the guide in the long run, because they're going to generate typically much better feedback for a customized experience than they will for kind of your cookie cutter experience. That said, a lot of our travelers are actually looking for just kind of a simple overview tour, and they'll find that on the website as well. But guides are encouraged, if not urged, to customize for travelers in advance of the booking. Some of our guides are quite happy to customize during a tour as well, so kind of finding out more about the traveler during the day of the tour and kind of tailoring the route depending on their interests. But we wouldn't have as much of a requirement for a guide to be able to improvise on the fly an itinerary that at least to the same degree that we would expect it at least in advance of a booking.
Okay, and what you're saying is true too. If I believe if you're an independent guide, opening up that customizable angle really can bring a new clientele to you, and you can hopefully, if Tours by Locals is making that mandatory, but that could reflect your pricing too. If suddenly I've put in another 2 hours building a tour, I want to be paid for that.
Yeah, we're only offering private tours, and every tour is customizable. So certainly those I guess qualities are reflected in tour prices to a great degree. And our guides actually tend to enjoy the experiences that they customize for clients a little bit more as well, because they know they know that they set expectations appropriately. Everybody's expecting the same thing from the tour, and the guide can be more confident moving forward with that itinerary, and the customer is ultimately going to get more out of it as well. So I would venture that guides who deliver tours that our customers enjoy have more fun on tour than a guide who's not really all that confident about what they're providing to the customer.
Colin, I want to ask about group sizes too. So it sounds like you are doing a lot of private tours, and when I think of private tours, I generally think of smaller group size. But is there a sort of maximum number, or say, if do you as Tours by Locals dictate a group size, or can I take 15 people if I want, 20, one? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So first of all, every guide is in control of the number of passengers or participants they can take on tour. So this often would depend on the type of vehicle they've I guess, secured for that tour. So capacities for tours reflect capacities for vehicles. Our typical group size at Tours by Locals isn't large groups. It's definitely small groups are much more common. The typical group size is about 2 to 6 people. Generally, people who are looking to Tours by Locals are not really interested in kind of like the mass tourism experience that they would get from like a bus tour, that kind of thing. So we don't see that quite as often. But we do still see our guides getting requests for step-on guiding, which is where the group has secured their own vehicle for the tour, and they're just looking for a guide to step onto the bus. So there's quite a bit of variety, but definitely small groups are much more common. And then even solo or kind of couples are definitely encouraged to contact guides directly if they see that there's a really large maximum on a tour, and they're interested in that tour, and maybe the maximum reflects the price of a bus to rent for that tour. Very likely the guide would not require a bus for a group of 2. So with that in mind, that some prices are a little bit flexible in that sense.
Okay, at the discretion of the guide.
Always at the discretion of the guide, as well as the group size is always at the guide's discretion as well.
Sure, because two questions that came from what you were saying there is, one, that you're obviously taking a bit of a pay cut. Say if I can take 10 people on a tour, either that's got to be reflected in my prices. Can you charge premium? Premium pricing, I guess, is a bit abstract, but would you say that that's something that's feasible? If say I set my price, at $100 more, or maybe even $150 more, how have you seen that reflect in the sales? Because I'm sure you have lots of data about pricing and sales.
Yeah, well, for one thing, we don't. Our guides on Tours by Locals don't price on a per person basis. It's always on a per tour basis. So usually a smaller group is going to pay more per person than a large group. Basically, this is because our guides don't charge for anything other than actual expenses during a tour. And like in the tour price, the guide's personal pay is included, as well as any fixed costs. And guides are permitted to add a per person component to their price, but not price the tour per person. A per person component might cover something like equipment rentals. If it was a biking tour, you could charge per person for the bikes, or meals. If you were including a lunch, you could charge per person for that lunch. But we wouldn't typically, in my experience, ever see a guide charging per person for extra thought or brain power required for a larger group. So that's one thing we don't really guides charging per person for.
There's lots of details in there that I'm sure each tour would have dozens of questions that you need to think and sort of work out. Another one that just came to mind is, say I'm a walking tour guide, or maybe it's a bike thing, but is a vehicle component necessary, or can you set up a tour that you're just like, hey, meet me at the Eiffel Tower, or meet me at wherever, and then we go from there, and sort of put the onus on the guides to arrange, but the clients to meet guide? Is that something that's possible if I don't want to mess with vehicles?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say, I think there's something like 10,000 tours listed on Tours by Locals right now. So the variety in what types of tours are offered, it's really, it's limitless. And so we have guides who definitely only offer walking tours. They don't want to be involved with commercial transport, which is fine with us. We definitely in most areas would require or want at least one or two guides who can accommodate vehicle transportation. So, and most guides will offer a bit of a range. So they'll offer walking tours, cycling tours, tours with private transport, and then step-on guiding types of tours. We do ask that for any tour where transport is a required element for that tour, so the tour can't actually take place without transportation, that transportation does need to be included in the tour price.
Okay. How do you handle reviews? We mentioned it briefly, but that's something that obviously TripAdvisor has kind of cornered the market, but you have your own customer feedback mechanism. When I go to Tours by Locals as Kelsey wanting to book a tour, am I going to see your own sort of rating system of the guides by other customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So every tour that's completed, once it's completed and the guide confirms that it's been completed, we send an email to the traveler asking them to rate their experience and to provide some feedback for the guide. They can do so publicly on the website, and they can also do so privately, so to send the guide maybe a personal message about the tour if they don't want that comment becoming public.
Or going to you, or do you see those?
No, we would see those. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you got to deliver it in person, that sort of
Yeah, exactly. And so when we receive customer feedback, as long as it's 4 or 5 stars, regardless of whether there's a customer comment on the feedback, we'll actually just simply publish it to the website. So there's no real administration other than simply allowing it to be published to the website. Any tour that is less than 4 stars in rating or suggests either dissatisfaction in the customer feedback or a breach of policy in the feedback,
we'll destroy it.
Definitely keep them. So we hold that feedback, and then we would immediately make contact with both the guide and the customer in the effort to establish some type of resolution so that both customer and guide are leaving happy from the outcome. This might require some type of compensation to the customer if that's deemed appropriate. And it has, on occasion, resulted in the dismissal of guides if under particularly serious cases. And so regardless of whatever the outcome is, the negative feedback is always published to the website, regardless of whether
so it is published. That's why I was curious there if we're fudging the rankings at all, which it could be good for your guide, but realistically it's going to be better for everybody if all of that feedback, which is what TripAdvisor has done. So one question there is there a way for you to publicly respond to that?
Yeah. So the guide, whether the feedback is positive or negative, they're always encouraged to respond to the customer's feedback saying, thanks for the great feedback. And if it's not so great feedback, the guide is actually required to make a response to the customer in a professional tone, not assigning blame, but rather just trying to maybe learn from that experience, get some information that helps them to improve their future tours. And then in addition to that, we as administrators may at sometimes add a comment to the tour or onto that feedback, explaining how we work through the resolution with the customer and the guide so that that outcome is clear to prospective customers.
Okay. Where does TripAdvisor fit in there? Do your guides, will they get ranked there as well?
Many of our guides work independently as well, so they may have TripAdvisor listings as independents, but we don't have any affiliation with TripAdvisor, so we don't list TripAdvisor anywhere on our site. Their reviews don't publish to our site, and our reviews don't publish to their site. In fact, TripAdvisor unfortunately decided to remove Tours by Locals listings from their website as they viewed us to some degree as a reseller of tours, which is in some cases true, but in many cases not, because we have a lot of guides on our team who are exclusive to Tours by Locals, and we're definitely not reselling their tours. We're simply selling them.
Okay, and that's something that TripAdvisor does, is if you're a reseller of tours, then you don't...
Yeah, you're not allowed to be an attraction listing under TripAdvisor if you're a reseller. So a lot of our competitors would fall into that same category where they resell even some of their experiences. It's not something that TripAdvisor views as a distinct attraction of its own.
But if I'm an independent guide with Tours by Locals, can I still be on TripAdvisor? Or say I have a TripAdvisor following and I make that transition, they're not going to take me off, are they?
Yeah, no, again, no exclusivity to Tours by Locals, so we wouldn't have anything negative to say about a guide who maintained a TripAdvisor listing page. And to my knowledge, no, TripAdvisor has never raised the issue with one of our guides requesting that they be removed from TripAdvisor, because through TripAdvisor, they're not a reseller. Again, they're simply selling their services.
Okay, so there is the flexibility there to maintain, not even maintain your online reputation, but also I think certainly in terms of visibility, that if
Yeah.
you can find me on TripAdvisor and find me on the Tours by Local site and maybe a couple other places, that's good for me in terms of getting exposure, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to agree with you there.
Okay, this is great. There's tons of great tips here for independent guides who are trying to, make it in this new and changing world. So, very happy that you're sharing some of these tips. This was a question I had. So do I have to be a local? Like I've worked as a guide all over the world, and led trips in Czech and Austria and here and there. And I worked certainly, with local guides. But do I have to be a local to give a Tours by Local tour?
Yes, you do. Yeah, all of our guides are locals in the places that they live. So,
but what if I'm a resident, or a resident who is like, I now live in Istanbul? Can I show you around with my uniquely Canadian quirky perspective on
Yeah,
Istanbul?
so local to us doesn't have as strict a definition as somebody who's born and raised in the city or in the region. It can definitely be somebody who's a recent transplant, somebody who's lived there for a period of time that's allowed them to really absorb the culture and the history and develop an understanding of how they can deliver a great travel experience in that location. So a lot of our guides are expats from other countries that have made another country their home, and actually can provide an amazing level of insight to some of these destinations, because they see it and they can relay to travelers how they experience that culture as an outsider, and so they may be perceiving certain things that even a local wouldn't have that direct understanding of the feeling of being a newcomer.
Mm-hmm. So if I lived half of my year in the sunny Canadian months, taking everyone on tours, and then moved to a warmer clime, it sounds like I basically have to prove to you that I have sufficient experience and that I could deliver a worthwhile or exceptional tour in that place. And it sounds like you guys are open to a dialogue about that.
Yeah, we're open to it. Absolutely. We do have a small number of guides who do actually live locally in two parts of the world. They kind of travel back and forth depending on the season. It's not always high season in every destination, and so some guides try to manage that, difficulty by offering tours in a couple of different hemispheres or a couple of different areas of the world that allow them to kind of grow the number of days that they can offer tours throughout the year. And we're quite open to working with these types of guides, as long as they can speak to being a local in each of those destinations and really relate that experience of being a local to the traveler.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful, especially for those independent guides that are looking to make it this sort of career, a lifestyle, a job. I think there's going to be more and more opportunity, especially if you can move into that premium pricing, where you can make this a year-round thing. But the reality is, not everybody goes to Easter Island in the winter months, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. And as a guide myself, I've had to look at a little bit at the seasonality of guiding work. And as a ski guide, it's not something that you can do all year round. So diversifying into hiking guiding is something that seemed natural for me. And both of those opportunities are fantastic in this area. And I think that most guides would find pretty similar opportunities if they looked even locally of ways of making their work less seasonal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just touch again briefly, because I'd love to hear a little bit more on this. What are you doing to market and sell my tours, right? Because this is the big question. How am I going to get more people to know about me? What exactly is Tours by Locals doing if I build a profile page with you guys?
Yeah, so the biggest impact that we make through our marketing efforts is through pay-per-click advertising. So this is specifically advertising to people who are looking for what we're offering. So if somebody's searching for a private tour in Rome or a private guide in Patagonia, we bid quite aggressively on terms like this, so that when travelers search that in Google, they very easily find Tours by Locals and by extension our guides, and then develop a connection then with the guides. So pay-per-click advertising is probably the highest impact and the highest expense that we deal with in terms of marketing guides. But then we also have an on-the-ground presence at travel trade shows around the world. So we're regularly at the New York Times travel trade show, LA Times. We go to London as well as Paris for travel trade shows in those cities and countries. And that's always expanding as well. And then we also do a limited amount of kind of banner advertising, so kind of ads that would appear at the top or side of your screen while you're surfing the web.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys delve into some of the social media advertising?
Yeah, I didn't even mention that, but social media we're very active with. So we have a Twitter feed, Facebook account that's quite active. A lot of our guides actually participate in the Facebook feed, which is quite great. They'll post photos and videos from their tours and things like that, which is always encouraged. And then,
I meant that's fantastic, but advertising the tours as well. So people who are searching through, Facebook or Twitter, that sort of thing, you're targeting those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So our pay-per-click marketing does extend to Facebook. I'm fairly certain that we are actively maintaining campaigns there as well. I'm not as intimately familiar with those details, though. It'd be more our communications director who carefully kind of manages those campaigns. And really, for the most impact, we're trying to spend as little as possible for the maximum amount of impact. And we see typically for every $1 spent in pay-per-click advertising, about $20 returned for our guides.
Okay. Well, that's great to have more people in your team. Absolutely, when you're out there. Let's flip the question around then. So
Sure.
You obviously look at a lot of profile pages, tour descriptions, that sort of thing. What is, whether or not they're on Tours by Locals or in your recruitment efforts, when you're looking, what is the most common mistake that you're seeing when you're trying to market or sell a tour? What are a lot of tour guides kind of messing up on?
Okay, I would say a really important thing is actually being able to see the guide. I've seen some profile photos out there and even some websites that belong to other guides outside of Tours by Locals where you don't actually see the person that's delivering your tour. So I think to develop a personal connection and a bit of a rapport with a customer, it's pretty important that they can see your face and know who they're speaking with or writing with. So that's, I think, a key element. And then in terms of the tour content, what needs to really be out there is not really so much a laundry list of the sites that might be seen and the places we might go and kind of the details and timing of a tour. That's stuff that should definitely be known and should be included in an itinerary. But what our travelers are really interested in when they're looking for a tour is the experience, right? So that experience should be really effectively conveyed through the written content so that I know what it's like to walk down the cobbled streets of the old town, so that I know that I might connect with the local culture through cuisine that's totally unique to that area, or that I might meet local people on my tour and kind of know what it's like to be a local in those places.
Yeah, so we need to invest in some writers. Really, it's probably a big thing because I look at some of these descriptions and it really does look like a snooze fest sometimes. You're like, maybe you're listing off all of the monuments that we're going to see on this tour, but it's like that to me is not the selling it, that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And this is something I'll really try quite hard, at least in the interview stage and kind of the construction phase of a new guide's publishing to the website. I work with them quite closely to make sure that they're getting their voice out there so that we can hear who they are in their writing, and as well really capitalizing on the experience that they're providing and not so much the details. So I'm working quite a bit with new guides to make sure that their content that gets listed on the website is really competitive in that sense.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about videos, the use of video, providing an introduction? Is that something that I could host on your sites? Because I think that's a great way of introducing you, your personality, all that stuff.
We really encourage guides to use videos on Tours by Locals, so every guide has that opportunity to list a short video on their profile. We typically find that about 1 minute in length is enough, so again, not really overwhelming the customer with too much information, but just giving them a sense of your personality and what you have to offer in your tours. And we encourage it to such a degree that we even held a video contest a couple of years back to really try to get more and more of this content on the website. And some of the runners-up and the finalists for that contest put out amazing content, and we're always seeing new videos come up all the time. Some really creative stuff. If you take a look at Amiel in New York, or Ami in New York, he's got some of the best videos I've seen on Tours by Locals. I'm not sure that he won the contest because we didn't want to discourage people who didn't have quite that level of talent.
Hmm.
It was really impressive.
Well, maybe we'll be able to link to that in the description. How do you spell Ami?
Amiel would be Ammiel.
IEL.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll get that link from you after, and we can put it down there just as a great example. Because
Yeah, those videos made him pretty famous in our office.
yeah, well, this is what I'm thinking too. That it's wonderful how we have so much video technology around, and the smartphone, and doing a little video yourself is great. But my big recommendation when looking at some of these videos is to really look up how I can make a professional looking video. And you don't need to buy a professional camera. You can still use your cell phone camera to do it. But if you take a couple minutes to get some good lighting, a tripod of some sort. Goodness gracious, use a tripod, please. If you're taking the people in some sort of Blair Witch introduction of here I am at, I mean, this is not something that you want to necessarily associate. It doesn't reflect super well on you if you're trying to sell them something. And I think, like you said, if you take that time to make a great video, like that's going to be noteworthy in of itself, and that's share worthy too. But if I'm planning a trip, I can send this to my wife or the friends or these sorts of things and just say, hey, check out this video. Like, doesn't this look awesome?
Exactly. It's more engaging content. When you think of a photo telling 1,000 words, videos are going to do many times more.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for that photography. If you're not talented with a camera, get somebody who is. Find
Yeah.
somebody who is. Yeah, obviously get a nice profile shot. But yeah, if you're going to be showing some stuff, make sure that these are inspiring photos that, at the magazine level, but at least are colorful, bright.
It's got to draw the eye. Absolutely. That's
focus. Really... things like this. That's great. So we're going to be wrapping up here. You're a guide recruitment manager. You're looking for some of the top guides in the world. What does that sort of ideal guide look like to you? And you've obviously worked as a tour guide as well. So I'd love just to get a couple thoughts on what does that perfect tour guide look like to you?
So the perfect tour guide to us is somebody that's very much customer focused. So that's really the driver of their business is referral business, and the feedback that they've earned on their experiences. That to us tells us that we're dealing with a professional. And even for a person who's not quite at that level and maybe looking at coming into tour guiding as a kind of at an entry level, we would want to work with somebody who has a good understanding of what their profession is. So who their competition is, what it takes to be a professional guide in the field that they've chosen, in the activity they may have chosen, or in the region they may have chosen, and how logistically they're going to provide their experiences with transportation in terms of access to certain sites, and really just knowing through their writing that they can deliver ideas through their written content, and as well to us when we're speaking with them. They need to be somebody who can really effectively communicate so that we know when they get on tour with a traveler, there's not going to be any difficulty. They're going to be well understood and delivering the experience at a high level.
Okay, well said. Well, thank you so much, Colin Garrity, for taking the time to be with me today and with the whole Be a Better Guide community. Any final thoughts for all of the guides out there who are trying to be the best we can be? I'll let you have the final word there if you want it.
Yeah, I would say to consider applying to join Tours by Locals. Get a good understanding of what is out there in terms of competition, and knowing who your colleagues are or who your competitors are in the industry. And if there's any questions, of course, on what somebody should be applying with in terms of our application form, or just more information on how Tours by Locals works, I just encourage you to contact me directly, and I can hopefully provide some insight.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. Well, let's flip it over to the community. Of course, to Be a Better Guide, we always like to have some engagement. So for all of you who are out there listening, if you are an independent guide, how are you selling your tours? How are you marketing? Are you using similar sort of strategies? What have you found that works particularly well? If you do have some experiences with Tours by Locals, we'd love to hear them. Post in the comments below, and maybe we can even have Colin stick around over the next little while and join in that conversation down below. Thanks everyone for being here. This is Kelsey from beabetterguide.com. Of course, you can head there for lots of training videos, interviews like these. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.